Sometimes good stuff happens, sometimes bad stuff happens.
Right. And sometimes you have to negotiate what happens. But that
Well, I
doesn't
would
really happen
say,
very much anymore, does it, John?
oh, I think negotiations happen. I mean, in essence, every time we start a deal, I mean, it's negotiation, negotiation, negotiation. I
I mean,
think
in the beginning.
that's one of the secrets. That's one of the secrets of our industry. Like I always say that if you look on Facebook, every real estate agent drinks a lot and goes to Hawaii because that's all ever seems to get posted. But
Right.
honestly, I would love to post some tense negotiation situations because sometimes at the end, and when the dust settles, I've said this to other agents. Other agents said to me, look, I'm really sorry, got a little heated, but you're a professional. I'm a professional. We just keep moving forward for our clients, and it all worked out. And I want to thank you for that. And
Absolutely.
I'm good with that. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I
I
think
think that negotiations in the beginning when the offer is made is
yeah,
what is lacking right now. Like, I think that the whole best and final offer due on Tuesday thing is going to be gone within a few months. We're already seeing it
yeah.
disappearing.
I think it's a
It's a cop out.
I
Say it.
think I think it's I think it's a market condition, like
Fair.
appraisal waivers.
Yes.
It's a current market condition,
Right.
and we've all been around long enough to know when it's a buyer's market, it's a bloodbath for the seller. And
Yes.
that's really when agents' skills rise, is
Absolutely.
when the market shifts and you can't go, well, I'll just take some pictures with my phone and I'll throw it on the market. And
Right.
even if it's dirty, it'll sell.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, those, what I think happened in the last few years, correct me if I'm wrong,
Nope.
but with experienced agents losing business or having to get their feet wet in this new time and era, you know what I mean? I think what happened is the negotiation part, what we're used to, what counter offers, things like that, they just kind of went away, and these agents said nope, best and final by Tuesday, and then that was it. They never came back. They never said, hey, can you settle sooner? Would your client come up to blah blah blah? None of that ever happened. And I think that's a shame. I really think it's a shame because there's a lot of skill in negotiation for our
Yeah.
clients. There's a lot of
Yeah.
skill. Um,
Right.
and it takes a lot of experience to be able to say, okay, how can we do this? Um, how do we get this
Well, I
offer
agree.
accepted?
I agree. I think that what we're seeing now is a lot of people who are agents
Yeah.
who are able to just find a way to keep coasting
Yes.
because the lack of inventory. I mean, literally, you could throw a pie plate of nothing on the wall, and it's got a good chance to stick.
Yeah.
And there's very little negotiations in that. I personally don't like the best and final. However, I
I
will
don't like
tell
it at
you
all.
that I don't like escalations either. Just make an offer. There's a million ways to skin the cat. I think the
Right.
problem with escalations are, it's a race to the top. However,
Where's the top?
you got to know as a listing agent when you comp a house and you make a recommendation to the price to the seller,
Yeah.
you know, y- telling a seller, "Oh, I got you $30,000 over the appraisal." Now they think it's like free money.
So we have a responsibility, as Tom would say, a fiduciary
We
responsibility to
do.
our clients to
Yep.
make sure that they are getting the best service and the best price that they can for their home,
Yeah.
or they're offering or receiving the home at the best price that they can possibly get it for.
Well, let's substitute the word for best price
Okay.
to best net.
Okay. Understood. Yep. Best
because
net.
because I when I get an offer and they're like $65,000 over list
Yes.
and I know it'll never appraise,
100%.
I feel it's my fiduciary responsibility to say to the seller, I don't think. I mean, they're going FHA or VA. I don't see that appraising.
Yeah. I have a client right now that you were going to do the open house for me on Saturday and I was going to do it on Sunday. I put the house on the market Thursday, I think,
Yep.
Thursday morning, and we were under contract Friday afternoon. So literally less than 48 hours, pretty close to 24 hours, to be honest.
Yeah. That
And
means the condition, the value, and the location matched.
perfect, perfect, perfect. Yeah, all the boxes were checked. My seller did exactly what I asked them to do. The house
Yep.
was mint when it got listed, sold within 24 hours. And I had to call you and say, thanks, John, but don't need you on Saturday. That's the best case scenario, right? We
Yeah.
all get to
Yeah.
sit back and say, okay, job well done.
Yeah.
Well,
They
then I
got their
got a
number.
call,
They're happy. They get
right?
their number. They're happy.
Got a call from another agent that saw it before we ratified. And she was like, what do I got to do? Give me a number. What do I got to do? What do we got to pay for this house? And I'm like, so I had to go to my seller and say, look, they're willing to pay anything to get in this house, but you have a solid offer. You have a great offer. I mean, this offer came in sweet that I can't really talk about yet because it hasn't closed. So, very, very good offer, and was going to close in like 3 weeks. So we may even close it by the end of this week. And that's, 2 weeks ago. So anyway, make a long story short, um, we are now, she's upset with me because we didn't consider her offer. So we did consider her offer. We went back
Right.
and we said, no, we already ratified. And I said, do you want more money? And the seller was smart enough to listen to me and say, no, we're going to accept what we got,
Yeah.
because all of the checks were made, right? Like this offer came in
Yeah.
without anything.
Generally, the first offer is your best offer.
Genuinely, right. Generally it is. I agree with you 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
So
Because usually, you know why you get the first offer? Because that person probably missed
waited
out on something a week ago and then changed their mindset based
100%.
on losing out on the other situation.
Yeah,
And so they saw it hit the market. They probably told their agent, write it, I'll just go see it, but write it at X.
right.
That happens to us.
So
That's a serious buyer.
right. Some people that are listening are going to say, wow, you didn't even try to get the other offer through. And here's the thing, and here's the reasoning behind it. And John, you kind of hit the nail on the head in the beginning. We were priced at the height, right? So for an appraiser to come in my opinion, and it's going to be fun to talk to the appraiser on Thursday, but um, in my opinion, when we push these appraisers too far, it backfires, right? So when
Yep.
we push them a little bit, they'll look at us, shake their heads, and be like, well, okay, I can see why you comped it out here. I can see why you are pushing it a little bit. Let's go ahead and do it because it's got a new roof, new deck, new carpet, new paint, blah, 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 right? So they're going
Yeah.
to give us a little bit. When we take advantage of that and we try to go above that, we are now putting them into a position where they just can't. They're not going to give it to us, right? It's unreasonable.
Right.
So that's why buyers, when you make an offer and it's just too high, that the seller may go, we're not going to entertain this because the appraisal is going to come in even lower.
Yeah. So you
Price
end up
has to
fighting
be right.
down the road when you shouldn't have had to.
Right.
Um,
Now, I did promise her that she would be, and I have her name and number clearly available if something were to fall through.
yeah.
But she told me, she said, it's been a year and 8 months that they've been looking for a house. Mine came on, she saw it within 24 hours, it was already gone. I mean,
Yeah.
realistically, sellers, buyers, when we get your house ready and you do it right, that's what's going to happen. And
Right.
buyers, you can't say I'll see it Sunday and expect to get your offer in. It's not going to
So,
happen.
so, so yes. So I have 2 points.
Okay.
One, um, you have to be ready to engage, even if you send your agent and they just do a video of it.
FaceTime. Yep. Absolutely.
Um, I have sold houses. Last year we sold 3 or 4 in the coming soon sight unseen.
Yep. Hate it.
My point about the back to what I wanted to make this point about.
Right.
Well, we're accepting best and final, and we're going to
That's the
review
final.
Monday. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the problem with that, and I've told this story before, so I'm going to shrink it right down.
Yep.
When you say that and then you do something else,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Or worse than this, because this happened to you, Sue. You had a buyer. There was two houses in a neighborhood,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so that agent tried that on you, and you said, "Look, there's two houses. We don't want to get hung up with you.
Yep.
So this offer is only good for 24 hours." And
Yeah.
so the agent's got his chest pumped out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do best and final by Monday, right?
Exactly.
And if the house isn't all, ready to go,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Then what happens is that agent may have to eat crow on the best and final presenting offers on Monday, because the seller's also reviewing and they're sharing with their friends. Look at my house. It's on the market.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to get offers on Monday because you have best and final. You're going to review them.
Yeah.
So Tuesday, the seller's calling the agent. Hey, I didn't hear from you yesterday.
Yes.
I thought we were going to review offers on Monday.
Yeah. Well,
Now
my
the
seller,
agent has to say, well, that trick didn't work.
yep. My seller actually said, well, should we have waited the weekend and see if we got any more? And I said, no, we shouldn't.
Why?
We have 100% solid offer. And I'm
Okay.
trying really hard to not say anything. So,
No, that's fine.
shut
Don't
me up
say
if I
anymore.
need to, because I don't want to
Yeah.
have to edit it. But
And that
um,
best and final can blow up in your face,
it
agent. So if you
totally
like to
can.
use it, if it's your go-to because you got nothing else,
Right.
that's how you get fired,
Yep.
fired
Yep. And
from the seller.
agents have to understand the responsibility you have to your seller. So, people that are sitting on the high plateau that believe that they just know this business so well, please make sure your sellers are advised. If you're new in this business, this podcast is for you too. We are shifting. The market is shifting. We are not in that seller market that we used to be. Yes, if the house is great and it's ready to go, like this seller did, everything that we asked them to do, and it was mint and we priced it at the highest point that we were comfortable with,
Yep.
I mean, then boom, and it's done. In 24 hours, it's done. That's what could happen. Now, I did tell them 14 days is realistic. Did I think it would last 14 days? Absolutely not.
No.
But I don't want to have them disappointed if on day 7 we don't have an offer. So realistically, 2 weeks is not far off from reality if it's not mint. If it's mint, do not do this best and final thing, sellers. I mean, it's just not, it's ridiculous. If you get a great offer, please consider it, because like John said a few weeks ago, we used that example where my client has no choice. She needs to buy, right? In that situation, she needed to buy,
Yeah.
and she was going to lose the other one. There's no time. Time is of the essence for you to
Yeah.
accept or reject that offer. If you want to play games and wait it out, good luck, because things have changed. You may not get another offer, and then you're on for a couple weeks, or you might have to take less because you realize that, like that property, you have a mosquito nesting place right behind your house,
You know,
right?
you know what? Funny that you say that. I
Uh-oh.
showed a house in Russet,
Okay. Yeah, Laurel.
right?
Yeah.
Yep, yep. Nice little single family. Surprisingly, it looked really small inside
Okay.
because its
You think?
footprint was narrow but
Yeah.
deep, right?
Right. Right.
And client loved the property,
Yeah.
and it was like March, April,
Yeah.
and right on the outside of their fence was a stormwater management pond,
Right.
and I said, "Man, come July, you're gonna need to hire the mosquito person to live at your house."
Yeah.
I said, "Because that stagnant water, man, it's gonna blow mosquitoes off like crazy."
I learned something maybe 5 years ago that I never heard, and I don't know if it's true. So if anybody wants to comment if this is true or not, I'm saying openly, I don't know if it's true. But people put koi ponds in and put fish in them because the fish eat the mosquitoes. So if you have a problem with mosquitoes and you put in one of those koi ponds in your yard, the mosquitoes are attracted to the koi pond, the fish eat the mosquitoes, problem solved.
Okay.
Just, I
Well,
heard about it. One of my
the
sellers
other
had one, and she
the
loved it.
other way to solve the problem that's cheaper because koi's are expensive
Oh yeah, right.
is
Goldfish.
make yourself a couple little bat houses and put them on the opposite side of that stormwater management pond, about 25 feet up in the tree.
Oh, and they'll go there.
They eat 2,000 mosquitoes a night.
Okay, amen. I like bats. Not in my hair. When I was young, I had my hair up in a ponytail. My friend doesn't remember this. I don't know how she forgot it. I guess it was my trauma, but we were up on the top of the elementary school hill where everybody gathered. You know what I mean? Everybody gathered there when we were young. And we were up on the top and it was getting dusk or whatever. And these two bats, I guess mating or whatever, or fighting. I don't know what they were doing. They came down and they swooped into my hair, John. And she, being the best friend I could ever ask for, grabbed him and threw him out of my hair. And I was like, how can you not remember that? She's like, I don't remember. I'm like, oh my God, that was the scariest moment of my life.
I think I was 14 and I forgot who opened the door, but like
Oh gosh.
they pulled the door open and shoo,
Scary
the
stuff
bat
right
came
there.
right in the house. I
Right.
was like, woo.
Right. My husband has a mouse thing. Like he's terrified of mice. So I can't even imagine a flying one. You know what I mean? He'd be like,
Yeah.
oh shit.
It took
It
us a
flew
while,
in our
but
house.
I've you use a broom. Use a broom. They'll hang out towards the ceiling. You get them to land on the broom, and then you just take them right out like a bird. I've had a
Oh
bird in the
my
house
God.
before. I'm like trying to chase the bird. I'm like, please don't take a crap in the house, because
I'll
the
clean
bird will get
that.
all rattled,
Just don't
and next thing you
attack
know, it'll
me.
start crapping everywhere.
Yeah, just don't attack me. So so when we talk about negotiation, sellers especially, I think it's really important that you understand that you know, this market goes up, down, all around, right? Like how many times have we seen it switch? It goes from buyer to seller, and then it kind of goes to what's right
But you're
now?
new,
Would you
but
say
you're
it's
new.
seller right now? I mean, I think it still kind of
It's
is
still a seller just because the inventory
solo.
in Maryland seems to average about 1.1 month, which means for every house that goes on the market, it closes in about a month.
Okay.
But
Okay.
that's not always true in all areas. For example, in Baltimore City, where you have a higher concentration of houses,
Yeah, true.
in a 2 mile radius, you could have in some of those neighborhoods, you could have 50 homes on the market.
Yeah.
So the absorption isn't as great, but you get into like Central Maryland, 1.1 months. And I know what the sellers are thinking. They're like, yeah, I'll wait for the Fed to reduce the rates.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
when that
so
happens, we're going to go back to mayhem.
and you're seeing the rental market's crazy right now, right? Like people are not
Yes.
selling. Why would they? Right? I mean, if you can rent your house out at 2,500 and your payment because you have an interest rate of 2.5%, right?
Yeah.
Your mortgage payments 1,500 and you're renting it out for 2,500, that's a pretty good idea. That,
Mm,
I mean,
if you're leading the state of Maryland
absolutely bring it up. Go
and
ahead.
you think, oh, from Ohio, I'll manage my rental property in
That's not even
Maryland.
where I was going, but yeah, you're right.
That's not true. That's not true.
Yeah.
It will not happen for you. You need a
Yeah.
property manager.
You,
And you'd be better off to sell that property because
yeah.
you're moving out of state. Because if you don't and you keep it for 5 or 10 years and you come back to sell it,
Yes.
you're going to pay the non-resident tax, which is currently not bad. I mean, considering, right? We call it the O'Malley tax. It's 7.25. Well, what if they raise that in the next 10 years and it's 15
Yeah.
or
We
10
can,
and a half?
we can check with Nicole. I think it's 8 now. I think the out of state
Well, eight
transfer.
eight is for LLCs.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if you have a limited partnership or it's in a trust,
Yeah.
it's
So
eight and a
out
quarter.
of state, I'm talking about the
Federal tax.
out of state sales tax. So when you go to sell
Yeah,
it and you're not okay, so we're talking about the same thing.
not a Maryland resident.
Yeah, not a Maryland resident. That literally, so even if John's right and it's 7%, right? Like let's say it's 7%. 7% of your sales price is going to a tax that you would not be
Yeah,
paying if you were a Maryland resident or
it's
you were a Maryland resident in 2 of the last 5 years.
honestly, if you're moving out of state, you do
So you
not
know.
want to get a phone call that said last night your house burnt to the ground,
Yeah. What?
right? Nope.
What are you talking about? Oh, right. Because you're not in
Yeah,
the state. Yeah, I
because you're
mean,
not in the state.
there's so much to consider. So before you jump on moving out of state and keeping your house, really think long and hard and do your homework, because a title attorney can walk you through that and let you know, or a real estate attorney let you know exactly what you're going to be facing. Um, Lawyers in this business, like, Tom, we could have Tom on every one of these, because you know what I mean? Like, everything's legal, and people don't realize that as realtors, we're not attorneys, and we're not trying to tell you we are.
So
So,
this the segment is negotiations, and I'll tell you
absolutely.
that negotiations can be as small as, I mean, if I
Yeah.
tell a client, hey, at the listing consultation, I said, hey, we're going to do a walk around in your house,
Yeah.
but I don't want you to point anything out to me. I want you already have your list, right? So you have a list. Don't show it to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk your house and we're just going to look. And when we come back to the table, I bet your list and my list are pretty close. And we'll do that. That is a form of negotiation. When I say to them, oh, by the way, I need you to get rid of this and I need you to do this before the pictures go live,
Yeah. I
right?
mean,
That's a
negotiation,
form of negotiation with the
you're making
seller.
it, you're making a very good point, John. A huge point.
Everything's negotiation. I tell a
Everything.
buyer,
Yeah,
hey, you want to see a house? Okay, you need to be pre-approved.
absolutely.
Well, if I'm not interested in buying it, it's not how it works.
There is a handhold, right? I'm going to call it a handhold. Like, you're taking your kid to the store, so you're holding their hand.
Yeah,
Your realtor's kind of doing the same thing, where they're holding
yeah.
your hand and saying, hey, come here, let's walk over here, let's look at this, let's look at that. um, at the same time, you're a grown person, and that realtor's not going to be able to tell you everything that you need to know. So you do need to educate yourself a little bit. And when your
Mhm.
realtor says, we can't do this, because, trust them. You know what I mean? Like, they're licensed, they're experienced, they're going through all the process. And when you think you can go in, I had a client the other day. I'm taking her out today, so God help me, but 350,000 is the sales price in this market. And she says, I want to offer him 300,000. And I'm like, first of all, no, sorry, but you haven't even seen the house. And she goes, oh,
That market's
yes, I
dead.
have. This is what she says. Yes, I have. I said, oh, how did you see the house? She says, I had another agent show me. This is just
What?
yesterday. Yes, I'm not making it up. Right. I said, oh, really? Okay, well, then that agent represents you. And she says, oh, no, I want you. I said, sorry, that's not an option. I don't understand. Okay, well, the bottom line is that that agent showed you the house. Oh, it was just Redfin. They'll show me anything. No, sorry, that's still a licensed agent. So
I'm
people,
gonna say, for the sake of the podcast, I'm not Redfin.
no, I'm not either. I'm not either. So, yeah, you are now represented on that purchase. She's like, but I didn't sign anything. I swear I didn't sign anything. I'm like, look,
They're
you have an
procuring
agreement with
cause,
me, but there's procuring cause, which means
right?
if somebody else shows you that property, they can come to me and say, hey, you know, send me the commission. 100% of the
The
commission.
commission, right?
100%.
We had an earlier podcast.
Not
Don't
happening.
cheat on your agent,
We did. And this is exactly what
right?
we're talking
You
about.
don't want us to cheat on you. Have you ever
Right.
had a situation, Sue? I have, where it's a hot listing. You know it's hot,
Yeah.
and you're getting phone calls like it's hot, so you're out like trying to get it
Your
sold,
husband. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, now you have two buyers, and they're both
Yes.
interested in the house,
Yes.
and you have agreements with both of them, right?
Yes.
And you show the house, and it's like, and then and listen, when one says I want to write on it, and the other one says I'll pass on that, you're like,
Thank
whoo.
God. Right. You're like, thank God. I have been in that situation, and even worse, I've been in that situation where they both want to write on it. Seriously. And I literally, there's nothing we can say. There's nothing we can do. We will literally just say, look, what would you like to offer? Here's the comps. Tell me what you want to do. I cannot tell them that the person that I'm writing an offer for is coming in $5,000 higher. I can't do that. So,
Well, listen to this. Listen to this. All you buyers out there, listen.
Yes.
You think, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go to open houses
Yes.
until I find the one I like. I don't need an agent. I'm just
Yes.
going to open houses. And then you walk into open house, right? And you've never had this feeling before. You're like, oh, shoot, this is the one.
This is
And
it.
you say, I want to write an offer, right?
Yeah.
And you're thinking the quickest way to get my offer accepted is to use the agent, the listing agent, the open house agent.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Oh
you know,
yeah.
what I mean, if it's a hot listing, she's had 3 conversations like that with other people.
Yeah.
So would you be comfortable in having one person control 3 transactions? What do you think the chances of you getting that offer accepted?
Yeah, zero, zero. You
Zero.
need your agent. You know, you need your realtor to negotiate for you. You need somebody
Yeah.
in your corner, right? Um,
Everything's a negotiation.
right. And there's
Everything we do has some form of negotiation in it.
right.
I don't want to get pre-approved. No, you need to get pre-approved, and here's why.
Yeah.
You know, and
So
and
real
if
estate,
you're dealing with a seller, you got to do these 2 other things. Otherwise, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen.
you're gonna laugh
You
at me
know,
when
I
I
got I
say
got
it.
a house I'm going to write on today, right?
Yeah.
As is, as is. Now, okay, Maryland
As
changed
is,
the
plaza.
contract. Maryland changed the contract,
Yeah.
and so now the contract is as is,
Right.
right? But it's it's not it's not a universal term, right? If you accept a contract with financing,
Yes.
is the contract still as is? I don't think so.
Well, on the financing addendum, it's going to say the seller is willing to pay up to blah 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 based on the
Well,
appraisal
if the
findings.
lender
But
ain't lending
you're
because
right.
this, and this,
Yeah.
I mean, I had one in the city last year where we put it on. It sold. It took me 3 times to sell the house. Some areas in the city are tough.
Yeah.
First contract, everything was hunky dory. Um, appraiser came out. The little front porch and the little back porch mud room, the appraiser did not like the condition of the roof.
Called him out. Yep.
And so that's a predication, right?
Yep.
And so my point is you may say you want to sell your house as is, but there may be things that you capitulate to that end up being contingencies that may make your house not an as is sale. So when I'm caught in that with a seller, I try to preface all that. Anyway, on my situation, seller jumped right in, did both roofs. I
Okay.
said, why'd you do it? Let's wait till he's clear to close and then spend the money. He's like, yeah, just do it. So guess what happened? Buyer couldn't get
Fell
financing.
through. Yep.
Right. So I had to resell it. Right. So the next thing comes out, there's some scraping, peeling paint. I said, would you just wait? Nope. He did it right away and the buyer fell out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everything's a negotiation that we do. Everything.
Ev-
Some
everything
are
from
little, some are
day
big.
one. Yep. Everything from day one. And I really like that you brought up that even sitting down with your client is a negotiation, right? Like
I don't want to sit down.
everything. Now the market has lost a lot of the what's the word I'm looking for? The market's lost a lot of the skill because people have done this best and final thing, right? I mean,
In conjunction with a
90%.
lot of other things.
It's
In
like
conjunction with a
it's
lot of
like a swan with baby ducks or baby swans following it, right? Somebody said, "Oh, best and final." And everybody out there said, "Okay, this is what we're going to do." And we're going to take best and final, except me who's stubborn as hell and said, "I'm not doing that." I mean, if I get an offer and let's say that one of my offers, let's say you bring me an offer, John, and it's let's for simple numbers, it's 500,000. The list price 500,000, right? You come to me and you say 525, right? And I say, okay, but you want 60 days to close. And then I get another offer for 535, right? Now I know that I am pushing everything at 525, right? I know that I'm being pushed and I'm going to be pushing that appraiser. Now this person's coming in at 535 and I'm like, oh, so then I've got to look at everything in the contract.
Yeah.
Are they willing to pay above appraised value? Are they willing to close in 30 days? Because guess what? On that $500,000 house, my seller may have to make another mortgage payment. That mortgage payment might be $3,000, right? So there's 3 grand that we have to take off of that $10,000 that was higher. What I guess my point is that every little piece of it. Now, what am I going to do? Am I going to sit down with my seller and say, here's contract A and here's contract B? This one's this and this one's that. No, I'm going to call the agent and I'm going to say, look, I have another offer. Can you close in 30 days? Because you're putting 20% down, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to explain that to them, but I'm going to say, we have another offer with much better terms. Can you close in XYZ? Instead of 60 days, they're going to close in 30 days. That's called negotiating.
Everything's a
I mean,
negotiation.
that's what it's called. You do not have to just accept. And if your realtor is saying, here's all your offers, which one do you want? They're not being fair to you. That's not fair, in my opinion.
That's why I started this by saying we shouldn't use we shouldn't use your best price. We should use your best net. My point is that everything's a negotiation, right?
Absolutely.
And that it's like everybody kind of follows the sheet. So the whole best and final thing, I think, is really a cop out. And
Yeah.
so I don't like to use the seller got a best price. It's about the best net because you're right. The expenses over 60 days are different from the expenses over 30 days, right?
And they may need to move. They
And they
need
may
to have
need
the
to
money.
move, and it could be a myriad. So when we show houses,
Hmm.
our sellers agents, when
Right.
Sue and I show houses, and there's an interest from our client,
Yes.
we call the listing agent, which I'm going to call a listing agent here in a few minutes, and say, listen, my client has an interest. We're working on some paperwork because she just jumped into this with her financing. And if I was to send you a contract, is there something about what the seller needs that I can share with my client so that when we write this offer, we're not writing a Hail Mary, rather we're writing something that is moving towards what ideally the seller needs. Does the seller need to settle quick because they're involved in something else? Are we, whatever that deal is. Generally, it's the seller has a timeline,
Yes.
and if I knew it was 4.5 weeks, why would I write a 60-day offer? I'm just going to tell my client, look, we need to settle in about 4 weeks.
Yeah, and
Okay.
there's so many pieces to this puzzle because, like, let's say that they're a relo, right? They're relocating through their company. A rent back's not an option. Like, they can't do a rent back if there's so some buyers will say, well, I can do a 14-day closing, and that might be exceptional for that buyer or that
Right.
seller because now their money is in hand. Even if they need to do a rent back, they can rent it back for up to 60 days most of
Yeah.
the time. I'm in a situation right now where that can't happen because my seller's a relo, so their company is moving them, and a rent back is not an option for them, so they are going to have to go on the market and ask for 60 days closing. What you're saying by calling me and saying, Sue, what does your seller need? Right? I would be able to say to you, John, they need 60 days. So we can, we'll accept your
Right.
offer potentially, but we can't close for 60 days because they need to move to a different state and they need
Yeah.
to be in the house until then. So
So
that
so
that is just a piece of the puzzle that you're talking about.
so yes, and I'm going to go on record right now that I dislike immensely rent backs.
I do and I don't. So sometimes,
However, have you
yeah,
seen the new form? Have you seen the new form?
the new rent back agreement,
Yeah. It's much better than the
maybe.
old form because
Yeah,
you know what it says, the new form. I don't know. I mean, I could ask the illustrious compliance Sharon Martlock.
he was
Um,
hiding from us.
no, no, she's working.
I know. I'm
That
kidding.
I gotta believe the number of complaints that get sent to the commission. There's a high number of broken down rent back. He said, she said, I thought, he didn't know.
Yes.
Um, and technically, our buyer agency, our listing agreement severs two ways. They go to settlement or we fire each other. And
Correct. One or
so
the other. Yep.
when you settle and the parties decide that they wanted to do a rent back, those parties are doing the rent back, not these parties.
Yeah. So what we mean by rent back, just to simplify it, is um, let's say that
It's the rent after the sale.
right. Let's say that a buyer. I'm going to give you a scenario. Let's say that a buyer has approval. They're already approved. The seller needs to buy in a different state or down the street. Maybe they're just upgrading. Whatever they need to buy. The situation is they have to sell before they can buy because they just can't get approved for another property.
Right.
Well, in the market that we're in, it's very, very difficult for anyone to take a contingency, meaning that that seller or the seller of that property that they find that they want to buy is not going to wait for them to sell their house. They're just not going to do it. They're like, no, we don't need to take a contingency. I haven't done a contingency for a home sale in probably 3 years. I mean, have you done any?
I don't think I've done any for about 5 years. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's
well,
been
let me
a
take it
long
back. Let
time.
me take it back. I did one. So we sold a property last year in Centerville, Maryland.
Okay.
That I know I've told this story about this property, but anyway, um, the buyer lived on Kent Island,
Okay.
and their house was under contract, and they were in the home of choice phase. So they were under contract,
Yeah.
loan approved, pending a closing in a home of choice situation.
Yes.
So once they got their contract accepted and the loan got approved, that's when the agent reached out to me and said, I'd like to show your house. Here's where we are. I think that was the only one I've done in 5 years. And it's not really it
Yeah.
wasn't a full blown, you have to, I haven't done one where they, oh actually, somebody an agent in our office had a seller and she submitted one on a condo without the seller even actually, without this house, the seller's house actually going on the market. And I was like,
Yeah,
you're
it's
wasting
unheard of.
time.
I mean, right, it's unheard
Wasting
of.
time.
So the answer to that and what we've
Name a
had to
few.
do, right, is we have to negotiate a rent back that allows the person up to 60 days to find their home of choice. So in the listing, you'll see as buyers, you'll see where it says, yes, seller will require up to 60 days to find their home of choice. Now, it's a tough thing. I had a client, and I'll tell you a story. I think maybe I've brought this up before, but it was really something because there was an older man who for 2 years was getting his house ready to sell, and he came to me, and people don't want to admit that their health is declining or that it's tougher for them to do the stairs they used to do or whatever, right? So he came to me and he said, I need one level living. Can you help me find a condo? I definitely want an elevator. I can't do stairs anymore. Absolutely. So we got his house ready. He put it on the market. And I put in the listing that we needed that 60 days to find their home of choice, right? Well, long story short, we sell his house. I got him $30,000 over full price and the 60-day rent back for free. So the buyer wanted it bad enough to say, we don't even want your money. We're going to let you stay for 60 days while you find your home of choice. Just accept our offer, right? So I'm patting myself on the back. Yeah, we did this, blah, blah, blah. Well, his live-in girlfriend of 20 years, so in my mind, wife, you know what I mean? They're not married, but in my mind, wife. I guess he didn't tell her that he didn't want stairs. And we found him 4 condos. So we had written 3 offers. And on the 4th one, she decided to come with us. And she said, well, where am I going to put all my furniture? Where's it going to go? And he was like, well, we'll put it in storage if we don't sell it or give it away. And she was so offended that she wasn't going to have all these bedrooms in the condo. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, why don't you just tell her that you don't want to do the stairs? We could find you a rancher, but you guys have to make a decision on what you want to do.
Yep.
Now, instead, he says, we'll just get another townhouse. and he actually went and bought another townhouse instead. So he loved her enough to get right back in that situation.
Ugh.
So she goes out and says that I sold her house out from under her. I sold it out from under her. Well, here we are. We're in the middle of this situation, and respectfully, we just back out and go, okay, I'm sorry that you don't know that he's hurting and he doesn't want stairs, or that you don't care enough. You know what I mean? I shouldn't say that because I'm sure she does, but that communication break is definitely there. And so what happens? It looks like the realtor came and sold the house out from under them, regardless of how much they got for it, regardless of the fact that they were able to find 90 days to find a new home. And we wrote 3 offers. It was the height of the market. So it's really something, communication. We could do a whole episode on people communicating with each other, right? It's got to happen.
I've had husband and wife
Yeah.
screaming at each other while I'm trying to explain something to them
Me too.
in a kitchen or a dining room.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to go outside for 5 minutes. Let me know when you guys are at a place to hear what I got to say.
Tears. Like I've watched people cry. I mean, it's so sad that, and some people get so attached to their home, they're staying at the house. If the husband gets relocated and has to move, they're like, well, we could just, can you get relocated back in a couple of years? I mean, I've had to sit down and say, okay, what is more important to you, being with your family or staying in this house? Well, obviously being with my family. Okay, so then stop. Like, then that's the answer, right? We've come up with that. So when we're talking about negotiation, we're talking about between buyers, between sellers, between us, between each other. Like, the communication is key. It's got to be there.
So I
Gotta
got
be
a
there.
I got a barn burner for you as we kind of wrap up an episode here. So I know of a particular, it wasn't my client, but I know of a particular situation where a gentleman lived on the water on the Chesapeake Bay,
Yes.
and he and his spouse, and property came available on the other side of said tributary.
Oh
You know what I
gosh.
mean? Right? Creek, river, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
right? Um, for $6 million.
Oh gosh. Right.
Uh, Gentleman took it upon himself to buy that property.
Oh gosh.
Went home and said, "Guess what?
I bought us a house.
We bought a house."
Yeah.
Really? He says, "Yeah, I want to take you and show you." So get in the car and drive over there, right? She goes, "I'm not living here. What the
Right.
hell are you talking about? I got to pack up all my stuff after 30 years and move across on the other side of said tributary,
Right.
the river,
Yeah.
right?" So the gentleman owns 2 $6 million homes. So the new property didn't go over well.
Yeah. No. And it
So
shouldn't. I
you know
mean,
how it ended?
he had one, she
Said
had the
said
other.
Yep. Said gentleman turned around and sold said $6 million house that
The
he
new one.
bought 2 months ago.
Yeah. I mean, there's surprises you can give each other, but houses probably shouldn't be one, right? Like, it just
Yeah.
shouldn't be one.
Eh,
It shouldn't be one. If
nah,
you,
nah.
I will tell you that I bought my house with my husband not seeing it. And it was one of those things where, um, I knew the agent that was selling it, right? She was losing the listing the next day. And I had showed it to a different buyer, and I was like, man, this is my dream house. And she was like, well, look, it's coming off tomorrow if you want to make an offer. I said to my husband, I found our dream house. And he was like, what? And so I showed him the pictures, and he was like, go for it, see what happens. Because we did offer much less than it was listed for,
Right.
and they accepted it. And so he didn't see the house until we were doing the inspection. It was
So
like he showed up for the inspection.
let
But
you
he was
know.
involved in it. He saw the pictures. He knew what I was
We
doing.
don't we don't really care about that stuff.
Nah. No, he didn't care. He was like, it has a two-car detached garage, so I don't have to hear you. Like, he wanted to make sure that his garage, because it literally is his garage, he's locked me out of it before. Um,
Yeah.
it literally is not attached to the house, so I can't just open the door and say, Bill. Like, he wanted me to have to go outside and go to the garage, which means I have to call him. Exactly. So I have to call him if I want him. But it is what it is. So I guess
It's all
the
right.
last thing that I want to talk about, John, with negotiations is so that people understand that negotiations are ongoing, like you said,
It's
from the
all the time.
beginning to the end. However, buyers, there's no renegotiation. Once you're under contract, you don't get to say, oh, you know what? I think I want to offer less. Oh, you know what? Once you're under contract, you're under contract. That's a legally binding contract. We've had people show up for settlement. I had this happen, John. You're going to laugh when you hear this. Gentleman came to settlement $3,000 short. Did I tell you the story?
No.
$3,000 short for closing. And it was like a 4 or 5 o'clock closing. So it was late in the day. And he said, we're like, you're $3,000 short. And he says, my lender told me the agents would split it. Not kidding.
It's
I'm not
not our
kidding.
money. It's not our
I'm
money.
not kidding. This is
The
what he
money
said.
belongs to the brokerage.
Right. So
We'll split it.
luckily, I had only been licensed for like, 4 or 5 years at this time, and I still worked for a lawyer, right? And the lawyer was the closing attorney that was doing it.
Yep.
So he says, oh, well, guess what? We're not closing. Call your clients. So I had to call my client and say, look, here's what's going on. He showed up $3,000 short. She said, put my house back on the market and tell him to take a hike. And I was like, really? She's like, look, don't play that game. Don't cut yourself short. You're not giving him $1,500. His agent was completely shocked. And she's like, my broker's not going to give $1,500. So we sat there, John, 11:30 p.m. He still had his friends bringing cash. The attorney was going to take cash. This is years and years ago now, 15 years ago. So, not kidding. This man, so he ended up getting all but like $1,200, right? Because at that point, you could only take like $500 out of the ATM. So
Yep.
he went to the ATM. His brother went to the ATM. And then somebody else was bringing cash in. And there's just, this is where they were. They were $1,200 short. The attorney, because he was a lawyer, wrote up an addendum for the other broker that said it would be 100% charge. So in other words, if they didn't come up with the $1,200 the next day, it would be $2,400, and it would multiply every day
Jesus.
until
Jesus.
that $1,200 was brought. Guys, you can't negotiate that. It's not an option. You're just, hear what we're saying. There's so much crazy stuff that goes on that you would get your mind blown. And again, we're going to finish by saying, what would you do without an agent in that situation? What would you do? You
Crazy.
need representation. Both
It's
sides,
crazy.
you need
Yeah.
representation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nuts. It's nuts. You
It's
know,
crazy.
really negotiations. I mean, it could be the smallest of issue, or it could be like sitting at settlement. I mean,
Yeah.
I sold a wholesale deal one time where the guy was short.
Uh-huh.
It was, I don't know, it might have been $1,200
Right.
that he was short, and I think my seller got 600 of the 1,200,
Yeah.
but he got rid of a nightmare. So remember we did the thing about the title,
Yeah.
right? About husband and wife get a divorce, and then down the road, said party who retained the property bought out the party who
Yeah.
wanted out, and then the party who wanted out moved out of state.
Yes. To
That
Florida or
that was a
whatever.
similar
Right.
situation.
Okay.
So they were married, got a divorce.
Yeah.
They had a small loan on the property, and he paid it. He paid it off. He paid it off, and then had a deed created where it went from him and her to her. And he said, all you got to do is file it with the courts, right? So um, he calls me up. This is probably 10 years ago. He
Yeah.
calls me up and he says, hey, my ex-wife passed away. And I said, oh, sorry to hear that. He goes, yeah, she shot me one time with a gun. I said, holy crap. Anyway, that wasn't the point. So I said, well, let me look it up. So I looked it up and I was like, your name's still on the house. He goes, no way. He goes, I signed a deed. I gave it to her. I said, you might have signed a deed and gave it to her. He goes, I even gave her the $350 or whatever it was to get it recorded. I said, yeah. She put that money in her pocket and then she didn't care, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, you still owe the property. By the way, she's 4 years behind on her taxes
Oh
and she
my
has a
gosh.
$5,000 water bill in your name.
Right. Right.
So when he was short, he didn't care.
Right. Right.
He's like,
Exactly.
I
Get
got to
it
get a
gone.
nightmare.
Yeah.
And
Get it
I
gone.
think he did get a little bit of money, which he gave to his daughter.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Crazy.
it was 4 years of back taxes and
Uh,
about $5,000 on the water bill.
we talk about we talk often about stories that have happened, and that's what this whole podcast is about: stories, real estate stories,
Real
real estate,
stories.
real home stories. And one of the things that we're trying to do through this is to be able to express the what ifs. What if this happens? What
Education.
if that happens? Right. You need to educate yourselves and understand that the person that you hire to represent you, because you really need to hire someone to represent you, once they're hired, once you're, shaking hands and that contract is in place, because a buyer broker is a contract,
Yeah.
um, then that person represents you, and that person can stand by you and fight for you and negotiate for you. And, all these experiences that we've had over the years are what are gaining or what you're looking for. You know what I mean? So you can hire a new agent. You could hire my daughter, who has learned over the last 20 years. And I know I've said this before. It's about experiences, right? It's about learning. So they
Yeah.
have been in the business without being in the business since they were 1 and 2 years old. You know what I mean? Literally 1 and 2. And their whole lives they've seen real estate, they've seen what's happened. So don't shut
Yeah.
out the newly hired agent, right? The newly appointed realtor. They may have more experience than somebody that's been doing it for 5 years, because they've watched it their whole lives. So make sure you ask the right questions. Make sure
Yeah.
that whoever's going to negotiate on your behalf is experienced and ready to go to battle. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to have thick skin in this
So
business.
so just one point.
Yeah.
We talked earlier in one of the first podcasts we did
Yeah.
about experience.
Yes.
And we're the only industry that I know. If anybody out there knows another industry that this is true in,
Chirp
please
in.
let us know.
Yeah.
In real estate, you can have a license for 20 years, not sell one house,
Yes.
and put on your social media licensed for 20 years.
Yes. Exactly.
Now, now, and I've talked to some people recently about this. You know, it's only 15 hours for continuing ed.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it move to 30.
Well, and not only that, it's important to understand that, you can have a license and you don't even have to pay dues, right? You have to pay for your CE hours, but you can be inactive as long as you
Yeah, you can be
get
with a
your CE
referral
hours
brokerage.
done.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. You could have,
But
you
if
could
you're with
say
a
you've been
if you're
licensed
with
for
a
20 years.
referral brokerage, you're
Yeah.
less likely to damage a consumer. The other thing I think that
Yeah.
should
True.
be
Right.
part of our industry, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm always looking at ways to kind of strengthen the integrity of our industry.
Yeah.
I think that
Why we're doing it.
every 2 years for your renewal,
Yeah.
30 hours of education
Ugh,
and
you're killing me.
five transactions in 2 years to keep your license. Because if you're
Keep an
not,
active license. You can be a referral agent. It does. You don't hurt
yeah,
anybody. Right. Yeah.
referral, you're
You're
not
not hurting
hurting
anybody.
anybody. You're
Right.
not
Right.
hurting
Right.
anybody. You
Right.
can't open a door. You can't write a contract.
Right.
You don't have access to Bright.
And
I
understand
think
that.
I think as an active agent, I
Yeah.
think it's minimal. 5 transactions, 30 hours continuing ed. And we'd stop the Mickey Mouse. We'd stop Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, I mean, continuing ed, people have to understand it, and there's so many industries where continuing ed's required. I think teachers, doctors, attorneys, everybody, anybody and everybody has to have their
The laws
continuing
change.
education.
It's necessary. Laws
It
change.
is necessary, but we have to do the same classes, ethics. I mean, you would think that after 20 years, we've done those ethic classes 10 times,
So,
and people still don't get it.
so
Yeah.
I did 20 years in ethics and fair housing for the mortgage industry, which is verbatim the
Oh,
same.
right.
So I
So,
got I got fair housing and
right.
you know
Exactly.
coming out of
Coming
my
out of our
veins.
ears. I think
Right.
that there needs to be more understanding, more education, more opportunities. One of the reasons I'm with HomeSmart, and I'll say this, I know we're not affiliated with HomeSmart on this podcast. Both John and I
No.
are HomeSmart realtors. HomeSmart is the reason I'm with HomeSmart. I'll tell you this, and Nashika's probably going to say, "Oh, yay!" But nonetheless, the reason I'm with HomeSmart is the technology that's available to us. It's
Yeah.
100% brokerage. Doesn't have to be, but it is 100% brokerage for us. So, we're dealing with experienced agents most of the
Yep.
time.
Yep.
And the company is just so giving.
They're very
They're
responsive.
everything that we need is handed out to us. Now,
Yeah.
realtors out there, if you hear this, do not go. I get benefits and John gets benefits if you go through us. So if you decide that you're looking for a brokerage, you can reach out to either one of us and we will tell you about HomeSmart. We'll walk you through the process, whatever. It's not an ad for HomeSmart, this podcast, but
Oh,
if you're not happy where you are and you're an experienced agent that is not looking for leads to be handed to you, because that's not what this company is about necessarily,
yeah.
then
Yeah.
give us a call. Let us know. We'll help you walk through the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll negotiate for you.
There you go. In
Right?
closing,
We'll
we
negotiate with you.
negotiated for ourselves.
We negotiate. That's what we do.
Right.
That's what
That's what
realtors
we do.
do. We negotiate. That's number one.
Everything's a negotiation. It could be
Yes.
over a pencil,
Yep.
or it could be over $15,000 in closing help, or $15,000
Absolutely.
over the appraisal, or closing 15 days, or
So
whatever.
my final comment for this podcast, this episode, is going to be to realtors out there that say best and final. Okay. To you out there, realtors that are saying best and final, ask yourself if you're doing the best job you can for your clients. And then take that out of your vocabulary. And remember that an offer that comes in is negotiable. You can
Yeah.
call the agent
Yeah.
and say, is your client willing to do XYZ? It's
Yeah.
okay. We've done it for 20 years.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. You do not have to accept an offer as it is in front of you. So that's my final comment. John, what's your final comment?
It's all negotiations.
100%.
Everything big and small, it's all negotiations.
From day
I'm going
one
to
to
always find
day
the best and
whatever.
final, because invariably I'll get a call 2 weeks down the road. Has your client made a decision about a house? Matter of fact, the other day, Sue, from October 19th, I was
Uh-oh.
looking somewhere. I was looking somewhere for properties, and the listing agent had not in the agent remarks, but in the consumer remarks,
Yeah.
best and final by October 19th. And it was like March.
It's like
And I was
nails
like,
on a chalkboard to me when I hear best and
uh,
final. Now,
especially when you put it in writing, you don't take it down.
it's one thing for, like I have a text going back and forth with another agent right now because my client was interested and they're thinking about it right now. They've got cold feet a little bit. So they're educating themselves. They're listening to a couple of these podcasts, to be honest with you, and they're trying to just make sure they're making the right decision for themselves.
Yeah.
So they saw the house, they jumped, they were like, yay, this is our home. We're going to buy it, write an offer. Agent came back, said, we have an offer in hand and we've accepted it, blah, blah, blah. The other agent called back. This is just what happened yesterday and said, actually, that offer is not going to pan out. Send us your offer. gave my client cold feet. Now my client's like, we need to educate ourselves a little bit. That's welcome to the daily grind, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's like a double lesson. The buyers were ready to jump because they couldn't believe they found a house that they really liked. Sellers said no. Buyers changed mind, right? Like this
Yeah, happens
happens
all the
all the
time.
time.
It's ebb and flow.
Sellers learn, right?
So everybody have a great week.
Yeah, everybody have a good week. We're going to record again on Thursday
Yep.
with the appraiser, hopefully,
Yep.
and we're looking forward to talking to you next time. If you have any questions, concerns, let us know. We're happy to answer them for you. And as always, thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.